Okay, so if you've gotten this far in the course, you're probably thinking now, come on, dude, teach me something I don't know. And you're probably making some snide comment in the remarks right now, like, oh, this is so basic. And that's okay. It's hard to make a class that fits everybody's level. But so far, we've just showed basic poly tools, which probably a lot of you know already if you're in this course. But maybe you're wondering how I did some of the decor stuff, which is a little more complicated, perhaps. Well, the truth is I bought a lot of the decor, but I did also make some of it. I can make it all myself, but buying it is a lot cheaper and faster a lot of times. So I actually suggest doing that because when you buy stuff, someone has probably spent days making that just perfect, and it costs you like $15 to buy it. So let me ask you this. Is 3 days worth of your time worth $15 or not? Mine's worth a whole lot more than $15. So buying it is actually the way to go sometimes. But sometimes, oftentimes, you have to make something completely custom because a designer or a client says, I want this. And you look all over the internet and you cannot find the object that they want in 3D. So you just have to build it. So it's very handy to know how to build it all yourself. But if it exists on the internet already, buy it, especially if it's high quality. Well, only if it's high quality. Okay, so this little home decor thing, there were some interesting modeling tricks that went on with this, so I'll go over some of those. Because this is no longer basic poly modeling. There is some of that, but there's also some other tools that maybe you haven't seen before. And maybe you have, and you're still going to make your comment anyway. That's okay. At some point, I bet you I'll teach you something that you've never seen before. Okay, so let's just start with a circle here. Let's make the interpolation go up. So it's a nice circle. Okay, what this is just like a ring with kind of like Christmas lights strung around it. Okay, that's all it is, sitting on a base. So how did I make that? Well, I'm not going to model the light bulb because that is just basic poly modeling. It looks like I've actually got a mistake in it right there. And if you look inside, it's just got the little filament. And I mean, the way you model that is just using basic poly tools, but looking really, really closely at like a little Christmas light and just trying to mimic it. So it's just about being meticulous in your modeling, but using the same basic tools. So let's enable rendering on this little spline here, and I can see some faceting, so I want the interpolation even higher. Like that. That's really high, but no faceting. Okay, so then to make this Christmas light strand string around it, what I did was make a helix right there. Okay, so let's just make a basic helix and we'll go in and modify everything later. Okay, so there's a helix, which is just like it's like a spring or a spiral or a spring or a spiral. Okay, and you can adjust all the parameters of it. There's radius 1, which is the outside radius. There's radius 2, which is the inside radius. We want them to be the same. We want them to be about, we'll say, 1/2 inch. Okay, 0.5 inches. All right, good, good, good. Now, how many turns do you want in that helix? Well, we want a whole bunch. See my spring shape happening there? That's pretty cool. And then we want to adjust the height. That's the last thing. Okay, so let's spread out those coils by quite a bit. Let's turn down the turns. How many times do you want that to wrap around? Well, I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out. Now let's rotate this whole thing so that it's in line with our little circle here. Okay, now what I did was use a bend modifier. Let's place this up here. And I don't like the radius of our turns. Let's make those 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. Oops, 8/32, otherwise known as 1/4. Okay, now let's try a bend modifier on that and see if we can't get it to bend all the way around that turn. The bend modifier is confusing because I don't know why, just the angle and direction thing, it's not really intuitive, but you can see I'm making a circle there. Okay, so if I took that and made the direction different, like that, 90 degrees, now we're making a circle, right? Okay, so let's move that into place here. And it's going to be bending starting at the pivot. Okay, so it's actually working quite well. And when you're doing the bend modifier, I would suggest going into just a orthographic or perspective view so you can see how it's bending, and then you'll know kind of how to adjust this from there. So obviously we want that at exactly 360 degrees. The direction, as you saw, was which way it's bending. You can bend it across different axes, and you can see the wacky stuff you can get here, right? So you'll want to adjust this until you get something that looks like it's starting to form a circle, and then you'll change the direction to make sure it's going in the right direction. Okay, now you can see it's created a circle here, which is what we want, but it's not a big enough circle. So that's where we go back into our helix and we start adjusting. And we can put it on show end result so that we see what the end result is as we change the height of our helix. So right about there is what we want, right there. And then let's add some more turns into it so it goes around that thing a little more. And then let's see, let's change that height so it's right there, so it's kind of weaving its way around this thing. There's a couple spots where it's wrong, I can see, and that's because our pivot is not in the exact right place. Okay, so now adjust that height down. There we go. There it is. Now it should be just going right around that thing. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, now if you wanted that to look more like a light chord, you could render it as a rectangle, right? Change its shape. We probably don't need the insane interpolation going on here, which is really, really high. Okay, just keep adjusting this until it's the right size. Something like that. Okay, cool. Now I think what we would do here, let's see, can we turn that into an edit spline? Yeah, we can. Now that's just an edit spline. Turning down the interpolation won't work here because it's already kind of burned in. Making it an edit spline gives us the ability to do the next little trick that I'm going to show you. And I don't like how thick this is, so I'm going to change it back. Yeah, maybe like that. Okay, now the next little trick is just the align tool. Let's take one of these objects here. It's actually a group. I've got the polygon of the light. Okay, copy that over here, and we'll detach it from its group. But we'll take this light here, and we'll get it kind of positioned how we want. Let's just say like that, and we'll go to the other view and make it straight up and down. Close enough. It doesn't actually need to be right on the money, because what we're going to do is, all that is a group of the polygon of the light and an actual light grouped together. And then we're going to take the pivot of that object and make sure it's right there where we want it to connect to the wire. Okay, that's where we want to put that pivot for now. Make sure it's aligned properly with that thing. And we will just take this group and we can go to edit, just kidding, tools, align, spacing tool. Okay, now we'll pick the path, which needs to be a spline, and we'll select our helix. Now you can see our count is at 3 right now, so it took that at its pivot and copied it around on our helix, which is absolutely not what we want right now, although it's close. So we want it to be in centers, we want it to be following, which means it follows kind of the direction of that line. You turn off follow, you'll see they all stay in the same direction. And then what you do is just go, instead of count, we'll go to spacing, uncheck count, and say every 4 inches. Okay, boom, look at this. It always goes away for whatever reason when you move. But there it is, it's all following. It's following the shape of my chord at every 4 inches. You can make it every 3 inches if you want. Like that. Cool. And just hit apply. So it's no longer paying attention to count. It looks like there's 25 there, but really it's just putting as many as it needs to have one every 3 inches. And apply it. Okay. Now, with the pivot being where it is, you can also go into the local pivot of it and adjust them individually now that they're here. Okay. So like this one is going through the metal hoop, and we don't want that, so we can adjust it. You can check them all, make sure none of them are. If you just want some to look more interesting in their placement, then you can adjust it like that. Make sure there's not a lot of overlap. We got some problems right there. This one just happened to be right where it would run into the metal hoop. So we just cheat that over maybe. Like that. Oh, just kidding. It was in the right place. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so anyway, that's the spacing tool. That's the helix tool. That's the bend modifier. Just some more tools for your toolbox. Okay, the rest of this was just made with basic poly modeling. But this is not necessarily something that I would put in this room if I was actually decorating it, but it was an interesting kind of model to make. And these little lights add a little interest to the scene as well. So that's kind of a cool thing. And you know, these are the kind of tools that you'll use when you're making little knickknacks and things to fill up your room with. But again, if you can buy it, go ahead and do that too. Okay, hopefully those tools are helpful for you moving forward.